Hello guys and welcome back. As ever, it has been a little while. I am Nathan, or as you may know me better by now as the Whiskey Speaker. Now, for many of you, it is indeed January, as in when this video was recorded, and for me that means dry January. So that has stumped me for how I'm going to come up with some ideas for whiskey videos and something that is relevant to you when I can't drink. So I thought, obviously we can't do a whiskey review, but we can do something that's known as whiskey hacks. Now, I've touched on this previously in one of my other videos, and I will add a link in the description below, which hopefully you'll check out at some point. But this is kind of a little bit more of an in-depth how you can get the best out of your whiskey. Now, the most important way to enjoy your whiskey is absolute number one rule, and that is that you enjoy it however you want. If you want a splash of water, if you want ice, if you want to put it in a tumbler glass, if you want it with friends, if you want it on your own, however you want it is the whiskey best served with you. Even if you want to make it a mixer, a cocktail with Coke, it is your drink, your dram, your choice, your rules. Every whiskey is unique like a person, and this is a beautiful representation of the two coming together to actually have a kind of unrepeatable moment as you kind of interact with each other, the drink and yourself. So here we go, hacks. Now, funny enough, we can't actually smell ourselves, which sounds like a strange thing. We have a natural odour which we give off, but from birth we are acclimatized to it, so we don't kind of appreciate the fact that it's actually there. And in order to actually kind of offset that scent or smell, every time you go for a tasting with whiskey, let's just say stick to our Glencairn, which I've got one here. So if we was using one of these bad boys, we'd literally obviously come to the nose, breathe in, and as soon as the alcohol starts to sting on the nose, you'd pull it away. But we do have the essence of ourselves actually being smelt in at the same time, which might sound odd. So the way we actually kind of reset our sense of smell or neutralise ourselves is to actually get the arm into the elbow, or the armpit I should say, and just do that, and that actually resets the nasal cavities in there to a more neutral level. Next thing I'm going to suggest is that when we actually come to the glasses, initially when you grab one of these glasses, now I'm cheating and I'm not doing product placement endorsement here with Asda's. What you can do is that you get your whiskey into your glass. See what I did there with the colour? Looks convincing enough, doesn't it? Make sure the old carton doesn't fall over. You're literally just going to swirl that round and then kind of make sure you get it all the way around the edge there, and then you're just going to throw it out like that, yeah, until the glass is empty, and that has basically cleansed and sterilised the glass to maximum, and allows you to then nose just an empty glass with all the fragrances coming off of it. I'm a little bit parched. I do sometimes speak fast when giving these videos out, so that's actually quite a nice, helpful, relaxing sensation to the throat. Now, the next one I'm going to come across is when you get your glass, come up to the nose, and what you're going to do is smell in, and as you do that, what you actually want to try and do is actually open your mouth, because then that allows for a full kind of oxidation of the whiskey into your mouth. So if you hold your mouth tight and do that, you will literally just get alcohol burn. So you can potentially oxidize the aromas and all the vapors coming off, and actually get all the flavors minus the alcohol. Obviously, if it starts to sting, the alcohol, just take it away and then re-greet it like an old friend. Hello, and back away again. So, but obviously when I'm doing that, I'm smelling apples all day long, but it's fun. Now, another thing that I'm really going to suggest is if you're a foodie, a massive foodie, then actually this is brilliant for you. if you kind of, your brain is trying to, in essence, work off of what it has tasted before, what its sensories are before. So if you eat a lot of fruit and veg, or you have chocolate, you know, anything like that, your brain, with me just presenting you a glass of whiskey and going, here, what do you think of that? And you going, I smell alcohol. Well, that's probably what's going to happen, because your brain has no sensory or reference point to which it can relate to. So over time, actually, if you enjoy expanding the culinary cuisine that you indulge in, that in turn actually helps with the whiskey. And another point with food and whiskey, I'm going to contradict myself here slightly, but if you do food pairings with whiskey, that will also allow you to kind of actually dissect another aspect of the whiskey that you wouldn't have otherwise realised was there. Also, at the same time, having just said that, not that I'm suggesting that you have a whiskey breakfast, that's your call, but I wouldn't recommend it, is simply that actually when you wake up, between then, let's just say if you're a 9 to 5 worker and not a shift worker, of course, if you wake up in the morning, say 8ish onwards all the way until just before midday, that's actually when your sensories in your nose and mouth and everything are at their absolute finest, and they're kind of being able to articulate stuff a lot more. As the day goes on, you have your breakfast, you have your lunch, and then you have your dinner. Eventually, it has actually kind of overstimulated the senses, and it's a lot harder for us to dissect exactly what's in this glass. Another thing that actually is a good thing, just my personal opinion, which is that you give, in my case, you give your senses a rest. You give them a chance just to relax. One, to make sure obviously you're not becoming an alcoholic. Two, you're giving your senses a rest, and actually free. Your general health can be maintained through obviously everything in moderation. If you overstimulate the palate, then it has to work a lot harder for you to identify actually anything from a whiskey. When you come to the whiskey, in order to actually appreciate it and gain more out of it, apart from everything that's already been suggested, is that always revisit a whiskey. You may be lucky and you've got a shelf and a few at different heights of all the ones you've tried, and you've come back to a few that actually are your favourites, and you've got some that you think, it's not my bag, but worth going back to 100%, because the more you go back to it, the more time you're allowing your brain to slowly unpick everything. Now, another weird and wonderful thing I would suggest is that actually, I know we can't always do this, but if you're in a good mood, then actually that's the best time to have whiskey. We are naturally geared as humans to indulge in pleasure. And if we're in a good mood, we then kind of release endorphins into the brain, which gives us a feel good factor. If we're in a happy, good place when we do this, then actually the brain is more capable of enjoying what you're trying to get out of the whiskey, whether it be the smell, whether it be the body, whether it be the finish. If you're in a kind of agitated mood or not quite happy and really annoyed, for whatever reason, your brain does not necessarily want to process what you're actually drinking. And so, good mood, more good feel factor out of the whiskey. Touching on them things as well, adding water, not adding water. A lot of blenders, master blenders, when they come to actually creating a blend or checking for the consistency, in a lot of cases they actually reduce it below 40% alcohol by volume, by therefore taking it under the definition of whiskey. But just by getting a pipette and just even a little couple of splashes of water in there what's actually happening is when you look into the glass deeply, you'll actually see that the alcohol and the water are trying to separate from each other, almost like kind of tentacles of an octopus within inside the glass. And the alcohol will kind of want to raise on top. So when you actually come to sniff, you may think, oh, I'm just diluting it, and I'm kind of actually pushing the whiskey down by adding water to it. Obviously, if you have, say, that much whiskey in the glass, and then obviously go like this much water, yes, then you will dilute it, to the point where it is nowhere near kind of in a fit position to kind of be studied. But if you like your whiskey watered down, rule one again, you enjoy it however you want it. But then a few little drops, actually you push the alcohol and all the kind of flavours that whiskey has to offer up on top. It wants to fight and get over above the water as you sniff, and it really does open up the nose, and then allows you to enjoy the whiskey even better. So that's kind of a whistle stop tour for all the little whiskey hacks that I know. Just touching very quickly on doing the cleaning out or rinsing of the glass. Another one that you can do actually is that if you obviously don't want to, and I understand why you wouldn't want to spin stuff around and flick it out all day, you can, providing obviously your hands clean but not kind of fragrant scented with a soap, easily just put it on top as well, and you can just do that around the glass, and then therefore you've got it all the way around the line of the glass, without actually having to flick it, and watch beautiful whiskey just then splash out across the floor. If you guys actually have got any kind of whiskey hacks or any kind of little techniques that you know and think of that actually might be kind of invaluable to share, then please do drop us a message below, and I'd love to maybe then read them out in the next video. And one more thing, just whilst I remember it, is that bringing back to the nasal cavity element of breathing in and then having your mouth open to allow everything to circulate, to not build up and pressurise in your nose, to give you more of an ability to dissect the actual nose and smell. When you put the whiskey into the mouth and go for that drink, and then wanting to check obviously the body and finish, one of the little techniques that I also find is very, very helpful is also, you've got to do this very gently. I hold the whiskey in my mouth and then I just gently suck in air through the lips, very gently, and then swallow it down. And what I find is that kind of oxidizes the sensors inside the mouth, which then really stimulates everything that's going on there. But that's just one of my little personal hacks. Anyway guys, I hope that kind of gives you an idea of maybe things to try and maybe things to enjoy. And as I touched on, if you've got anything yourself, please do drop it in the comments below, and I'll read them out in the next video. And I really think it's great if we share everything that we learn together, because then we can all have a more fun, enjoyable, pleasurable experience in the world of whiskey. Obviously, rest of Jan, I can't do any tastings, but I do have some really good bottles lined up that I cannot wait to share with you. And during the meantime, I'm going to try and find something that might hopefully interest you in the world of knowledge with whiskey, and hopefully sometime during 2022 I will be doing some actual distillery visits, and hopefully can produce some short, interesting but memorable videos for you guys to watch and enjoy. In the meantime, keep safe, and if you have any questions, please ask. Bye for now guys.